today we're going to be going through thinking about your next role. As you all know, we will be recording the webinar, so this will be available on the web portal afterwards for you to use. I know you're all on mute, so thank you for that. We will have opportunities throughout the webinar in the middle and at the end for any questions. So please unmute yourself for that if you do have anything you'd like to ask us. There's also a chat function. So again, please use that if you've got any questions throughout, and we can answer those. And we will also be around for half an hour after the webinar. So if anyone's got any questions about the content of today, or if you'd like to ask us anything relating to your job search, then you can do so. So just to recap on the support that you'll be receiving over the next couple of months, everyone will have access to our online portal, which has got lots of information, resources and templates for you to work through. We'll be delivering 3 webinars. The next is on Friday the 14th of August at 10 AM, where we'll take you through preparing your CV and job applications. And the final webinar will be on Tuesday the 25th of August on preparing for your interview. And then alongside the online portal and the webinars, you'll receive unlimited email support. So if you've got any questions on anything at all throughout the next couple of months, please do just drop us an email on support@nextstepsconsulting.co.uk. So hopefully some of you will have had a chance to look through the online portal, but if not, I'll just go through very briefly the sections that we've got on there. So the first one is around your next role, much of which we'll be covering today. Then we've got a section on networking and routes to market, which will cover how to think about maximising the networks that you've got, what the routes to market are, and some of the most widely used job boards that you can start to look at for potential next roles. Then there's a section on building your brand and CV, which covers writing your CV, your 30-second elevator pitch, and building your LinkedIn profile. And again, some of this will be covered in the next webinar that we deliver. Then we've got a section on job applications and cover letters, which will cover how to approach job applications and some template covering letters that you can use. Then we've got preparing for interviews, which again, there'll be a webinar on. So how you prepare for interviews, possible assessment centres, example interview questions, and how you might review the interview process. And then lastly, when you get your new roles, just some things to think about when you get offered a new job and how to prepare for the first 90 days in your new role. So I'll now hand over to Deb, who will take you through the next part of the webinar.
Good morning, everybody. We're just going to do a brief overview of what we're going to cover today. So the alignment model is a really helpful tool and technique to help you focus on your wants and needs for your next job role. Clients find it really helpful and useful in helping them to focus on what their next role might be, their next job, or the next opportunity that you may face in the coming months. Not only does it focus on what you want and need, it also gets you to think about the wants and needs of the organisation that you're interested in their jobs that they might be advertising for. It does require some time investment, and you'll need to be honest with yourself. It's a great job search tool, as well as helping with career aspirations and progression and your steps beyond the next or current job. We're going to share some case studies with you, and we're going to tell you how people have used the alignment model that we've worked with. We're going to discuss some confidence building techniques and some resilience, and we're also going to touch on some well-being too, because it's important that you look after yourself in the coming months. We'll review some takeaway learnings, and there'll be some focus on what you can do after this section and the next steps in readiness for the next webinar. Next slide, Jan. Can we just take some time to read through the quote from Steve Jobs? He makes the point that we have to love our work. It's really challenging to be honest with ourselves about what we like about what we do, but also being honest about what we don't like. The alignment model is a tool that will help us focus on this and help you in your next steps. We've touched briefly on the alignment model and its focus. It's a tool that you can use to determine your wants and needs, and that you can continue to use over time for job search, for job applications, for job interviews, promotions, next step, your personal development. It's important for you at this point to help you focus not just on the practical issues. We can all appreciate that for some of you it's important to get another job, to get paid, to get some money back into our lives, but we also really want you to focus on what you want and what also you can offer the next role and what you're really great at. Remember that this is an opportunity, and look at it as an opportunity to plan for your future. And sometimes we don't get that time in our current workspace, and you might not have had that time in the past to sit down. And as I said, this does take some time investment, and it does take some thinking and some reflection. An organisation has its wants and needs too, and also the roles that you'll be applying for have their needs, and you can use this model to help match their wants and needs with your offering. And your offering is about what you're really great at. Remember that organisations' wants and needs will change, and you'll need to adapt and keep that offering relevant.
Hey, morning everybody. So as you can see, this is the alignment model, and there are 4 quadrants. I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of the 4 quadrants, and then we're going to go into each one in more detail. So the number 1 is what you want and need, and number 2 is your offer. And then we go over to think about the organisation. So we've got number 3 in the top right hand corner. What do they want and what do they need? And then 4 in the bottom right, what is it that they offer? So the way the model works is that you go through numbers 1 and 2 yourself, and then when there's a potential role that comes up, you do 3 and 4. You then have a look at how well matched 2 and 3 are, so what you're offering and what the organisation want. If they're well matched, then that's when you go to application, hopefully to interview, etc., etc. If you get an offer, then you start to look at, are they going to be able to offer me what it is that I want and need? You can do that a little bit earlier on in the process as well. So I'm aware that that's quite difficult to follow, so we're going to take you through it step by step. Next slide, please, Jem. Okay, so in terms of your wants and needs, just one thing to mention: when you've had time to go through any quadrant of the model, particularly in 1 and 2, ensure that you're challenging yourself with it. Ideally, ask someone who's close to you and knows you well to go through it and provide you challenge. For example, your partner or a close friend. So in terms of your wants and needs, really think about what it is that you want and need from your next role. Is it a challenge? Is it something new? Is it a step up? Is it a change in the type of organisation? So let's have a look at some of the bullets there. I would recommend that you go through each one of these, even if you decide when you're looking at it that that's something you're not really bothered about either way, it's still good to go through them. So in terms of promotion, are you looking for a promotion? Are you looking for something at the same level? Are you actually looking at something at a lower level? You want to take a step back and take some lower responsibility in your next role? When you're thinking about that, and when you're thinking about your salary and your package, ask yourself that question: what financially is it that you and your family need you to get from this next role? Do you need to be earning more? Can you be earning less? Could you move to part-time? Could you move to volunteering? That might tick more of your other boxes if you don't need the financial aspect of a salary coming in. Think about the role and the type of organisation. What sort of role do you want next? What sort of organisation would you like to work in? And what about the sector? Would you still like to work in the charity sector? Is that really important to you? I'm aware that the market might influence your thoughts about that at the moment, but just on this piece, don't think about the market. Think about what it is that you really want. So if you'd really still like to carry on in the charity sector, that's important to draw out here. In terms of culture fit, you may have worked at different organisations in the past. I'm sure you'll have lots of friends and colleagues that are in other organisations. Try and find out what it is about the culture of those organisations that mean they really enjoy working there. What was it about culture in previous organisations or in this organisation that's meant that you've enjoyed working there? And try and get that succinctly down so you understand what culture you're looking for in the next company that you go to work for. For example, do you want your company to be really heavily involved in the community? With regards to empowerment and autonomy, again, think about what it is that you need here. Do you need both of those to keep you energized on a daily basis, or is that not important to you? We touched on the level of responsibility. What is it that's going to motivate you to want to go into a new role on a daily basis? Is it more than you've got today, less, or is the same okay? Again, similarly with challenge, what is it that you need? Do you want to be really challenged in your next role, or actually do you want as little challenge as possible? In terms of interaction with people, is that something that you enjoy? Do you want that on a daily basis, or does that drain your energy and that's something that you'd only like to do very infrequently? Thinking about location, is it important for you to go into an office? Do you want to travel? Actually, are you happy working from home and you really don't want to be going into an office 5 days a week? That's really important to think about. Obviously, that's going to be impacted with what's just happened with COVID recently and how companies are changing, but think about what it is that's important to you first. In terms of your family needs, ask yourself, is this a good time for you to challenge yourself, whether that's in a completely new role or a promotion? If there's a lot going on at home, is now the right time to take a step up at work too? I'll now hand over to Devs to take you through quadrant 2.
Thanks, Ange. The quadrant 2 is looking about what I offer. So what is my unique selling point? What is my USP? And when was I really good or really great in my job? Whether it's your current job, a previous job, or an earlier job in your early career. Think about this and write it down. You need to describe it in your own words. What are your skills? What is my knowledge? And what is my experience? Think about and describe what you do and what you're really good at and what's really important to you. And more importantly, think about why. Why is it really important and why were you really good at it? I always find it useful when I'm talking to clients is to identify 3 key or great achievements, something that you're really, really proud of. What was your role in that and why was it so great and why was it so key or instrumental in your current role? Think about what your current contribution was and be honest about that. Were you part of a team? Was it more of a team effort? Did you lead on a particular initiative? Was it all about you? And link that back into your skills and knowledge. So what you're starting to build up is a story around your experience, your skills and your knowledge, and about when you were really great. Another area that you need to think about, and this is difficult, is writing down what you don't want. What are your not wants? And it's about thinking about what you don't want to do anymore. And this can be really challenging for you. You're really going to have to try and do it and understand that you might feel guilty about thinking or writing down what you don't want to do. But it's really important that that feeds back into the wants and needs section that Anne just talked about. For example, you might have a role that involves supervising a small team, and a key element of that was managing their performance and key performance indicators and targets. If you didn't like that and you didn't like that interaction and that way of working with people, maybe you didn't like it or you didn't do it particularly well, being honest and saying this is something that you don't want to offer at this time is really, really important. So think about that particular section, focus on being honest, and again, start populating that quadrant. Next slide, over to you, Ange.
Thank you. So now we're going to be thinking about the company that you're applying to and what their wants and needs are with the role that they're trying to fill. So this is obviously going to need you to have a role in mind. A lot of this information, these bullet points, you could pull out of the job description or the advert. If you can't get to that level of detail from the description or the advert, see whether you could speak to either the recruiter or someone in the HR department or the actual person that's recruiting for the job themselves to try and get some answers. You might be able to look on their website. You may know some people already working there. What you're trying to do is really get under the skin of the role. What is it that they want you to be doing and delivering on a day-to-day basis? So thinking about the overall purpose of the role and the job content, is that something that floats your boat? What's the experience, the skills and the knowledge that they're looking for? You need to understand here, what are their non-negotiables and what are their nice to haves? For example, if they say they want you to be fluent in German and you're not, and that's a non-negotiable, there's probably not much chance in going through with the rest of the work that you're going to do. However, if they say it's a nice to have, then you may be able to mitigate around that. You might be able to say, I don't have German, but I've got French and I'm really good at learning languages, and I'd be more than happy to go to night school and to learn German whilst I'm started in the job. Ask yourself why the role might be vacant and help you think about whether that's something that you would want to apply for. It might also give you an idea of how quickly they're looking to fill the role. So for example, if they're saying that they would prefer an immediate start date and you can do that, make sure that you get that over in your application. When looking at their strategic goals and their key business challenges, is that something you're going to be getting involved in and want to help solve? Will it energize you, or is that going to bore you? You don't want to be going into a new role if all those challenges that you know you're going to be facing, you're not going to find of interest for you. So when you've been through all of that, like I said, you need to identify what the deal breakers are and what the nice to haves are. And then you need to compare that with what your offer is in quadrant 2. So you're trying to match up your offer in 2 and what it is that they want in number 3, their wants and needs. You need to make a judgment call here. Roughly 60% match is okay to go forward to application, but not if the 40% that's missing are the deal breakers. So that's where you need to think about the mitigation that I talked about. So that may be saying, you know, yes, I can go to night school and I can pick up this language. Or also, you know, I'm used to developing and growing in my role. Those 3 or 4 elements that are nice to have, I don't have them, but I'm happy to try and pick them up and I'm a quick learner. If you're going for a more senior role, then you really need to be looking for more of an 85% match. But lots of senior people will then say, actually, I match all of these things that you're looking for, and because I'm going into a senior role, I would look to have people around me that could provide those other 15%. If any of you are considering going into the interim market, then it's worth noting here that you're really looking for 100% match. And that's because in the interim market, people will really want you to hit the ground running. So they won't have time for you to be able to pick up some of the key skills or experiences that they want from you. After you've been through this a few times, you'll get to know for yourself whether you're pitching at the right level of application. If you're going through and you're getting too much of a match, you might not be challenging yourself enough. And if you're going through and you're not getting enough of a match, then you might be sort of pitching at some of the jobs that are a bit too high level at the moment. Now going to hand over to Debs to take you through the offer.
Thank you, Ange. Quadrant 4 will help you think about how the organisation's offer matches your offer, quadrant number 2, and your wants and needs, quadrant number 1. You'll need to think about doing some due diligence on the organisation. So this can be done at application stage. It can be updated throughout the process, so through application, to interview, to actually receiving a job offer, considering that offer and whether you're going to accept or not. The key questions to consider is, how does that opportunity match your wants and needs? And would you be willing to compromise on anything? During the selection process, you need to ask yourself, have I fully understood the organisation and the role they want and need? Which again is referring back to number 3. Ask yourself, is the organisation going to offer support and development that will address any shortfall between my offer and their wants and needs? Is there a cultural fit? Is this going to challenge me in any way? Is it the type of organisation that I'm going to feel comfortable in or more challenged in? Is there progression? Is this important to me? And again, that reflects back to quadrant 1 and how it matches your wants and needs. If there are gaps at any stage in that process, part of your due diligence will enable you to check out at those various stages, whether that's application stage, interview stage, or offer stage, the person or people that you need to speak to take forward and raise those questions at those various stages. So that's all part of your piece of due diligence. Thanks. Next slide.
Okay, just to recap, you need to think about 1 and 2 from your own position so that you can do that starting from today. You don't need to wait to think about a role that you're looking at. Once you've done that, and then you look at a role that you're thinking about, then you go to number 3. If 2 and 3 are a good match, you then move to number 4 and see whether what it is they're offering matches your wants and needs. You may only be able to do that at a cursory level initially, because you may only have a little bit of information. You might just have a salary banding rather than the actual salary that they may be looking at. If 1 and 4 at that point are a good match, that's when you go through and you would make the application, hopefully to interview and finally to offer. Once you get the offer, that's when you go through 1 and 4 again. And as Debs was saying, if there's any compromise needed there, you might say, I really want the job, I'm really looking forward to this, but the salary level's not quite where I need it to be, or you may be then at that point wanting to ask about something like flexible working, etc., etc. So that's the overview of the alignment model. As Gemma said, there's lots of information about that on the portal as well, and there's also a template. But I'm just going to take you through a case study because sort of seeing how someone used it in sort of a real situation may just help with a little bit. So this is one of my recent clients that I work with. He just graduated, and although he'd worked in the industry previously, it was always part-time, never on a full-time basis. He was applying for a temporary role, but it was actually the gravitas of the institution that he wanted to apply for that made him feel really daunted, and he didn't think that he stood a chance. As we looked at the alignment model and we looked at his offer and picked out what it is that they were looking for from the job advert and the detailed description that he received, he realised that he was overqualified, which really boosted his confidence. We then worked through how he could show in his application and at interview, once he secured that he really was the best person for the job, but also that him being overqualified didn't matter to him, and that he wasn't just using this as a stopgap. It was really about the institution and the benefit of working there and the development that he would receive while he was there that was really important to him. So we picked that up in the questions that we were practicing before interview to make sure that that really came across. He was able to put a very convincing application together, and he did secure interview, and I'm pleased to say that he did secure the role as well. He's continued to use the model just to make sure, as Deb said earlier, that he's regularly on top of what it is that he wants and what the organisation are now looking for from him. And I'm pleased to say that he's been offered a further year contract. I'm just going to share with you a quote from Kieran, my client, just so you can see that how he felt to use the model. And I'll hand over to Debs with another case study.
Okay, so just to really important that we use the case studies and bring some of these examples to life for you. So my person had worked for an organisation for several years. They have been promoted through the ranks. I think, to be fair, felt that they had just been at the right, the right place at the right time, and were never really that confident that they gained promotion on their merits. Rightly or wrongly, that's how they felt. Their job had changed in recent years, and there'd been a change in their line management and a change in the direction of business. So, they weren't feeling particularly comfortable. There was a little bit of anxiety and stress. They felt in a rut. There was a reorganisation proposed by the organisation, and voluntary redundancy was on the table. And at that point, they started, they came and talked to me about it, and we started working together. We decided to work on the alignment model and work through it. They were really honest in their approach, and I've talked about this previously in the session about being honest. They even asked a work colleague who they trusted and also a friend to review it, because they really wanted to decide what was going to be their best move for them. They were able to see that they'd stopped being great in their job because the organisation had changed, and that had affected their confidence. They didn't really like the things that they were doing currently. They liked some aspects, but they didn't like it all. And they realised through doing the alignment model that their confidence and how they performed in the job had been affected. And they found it was impacting on their home life as well. That stress and anxiety was finding its place in the home, and that they weren't generally happy with life altogether. What we did find out in the alignment model were the key aspects that they were really great at, why they were good, and importantly, what they didn't like and what they didn't want to do again and going forward. So it was a really interesting and challenging exercise to do. They did discover that they liked the environment and the type of business that they worked in, and they were able to back that up with their experience, their skills and their knowledge in their particular sector. They developed a really strong CV from the alignment exercise as well. So the result of that was that they decided to take voluntary redundancy, and we started on the journey of exploring job opportunities in similar sectors, slightly below the level that they were operating currently. They wanted to regain that experience and that sense of doing a great job. And so they literally did think about just going that layer down, that grading down, level down. So they gained some confidence again. They were able to remember how great they were and how that fed itself into their job. And after we made, I'm just thinking now, they did 3 applications to 3 very different organisations, one in the sector that they currently worked in, one in something similar, and one completely different, commercial environment. They got through to interview on all of those. They were able, between us, we talked about that there were probably at least 2 of those that were an okay match, but we felt that it was really important to get some interview practice and to put ourselves out into the market. And so out of those 3, they did actually get one of those jobs. They got a job offer, they worked back through the alignment model, matched it up and decided to accept on that basis. So you'll see from the next slide, Gemma, if you can put that up, this was their quote, this was what they wanted to feedback, and if you just take some time to read through that. Thanks, Jen. Next slide. So, any questions? If you want to make any comments in the chat box, we can pick those up. Whether you found the alignment model interesting to take forward. We do recognise that you're going to have to take some time to reflect. We've covered a lot in this section, and that you might have some questions after the session, after you took that time to think about it. So you can get in touch with us after today if you've got any questions or reflections. I know that when I've been doing the alignment model, people have asked, haven't they, Ange? They ask, I just need some money. I just need some money and a job. Why do I have to go through the alignment model? What's in it for me? What would your response be, Ange?
I've had that with a couple of clients, and my response was, I completely get that. But sometimes if we're going into a role that isn't really a great fit for us, if we're clear about that up front and we've set our expectation about that, it almost makes it easier to deal with. So if we've been through the alignment model and there's not a great match between our wants and needs and what they're offering, but we match in terms of our offer with what they want, so we've been offered a job but we're like, oh, you know, it's not really the culture that I want, or there's no room for development. If you understand that, but actually what's the most important thing to you at that point in time is to get paid, then that's fine. We're not saying don't take that role, but having that understanding and that clarity around why you've made that decision can make it easier to then sort of cope with that role for the next 6 to 12 months, whatever it is that you need it for.
Another question that I've been asked, and I alluded to it in the case study that I've just talked about, is, are there people that we can ask, or are people around us that we can ask that can help us with completing the alignment model in terms of wants and needs and what I can offer? Have you got any suggestions on that, Ange?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, make sure it's somebody that's close to you and somebody that will be honest with you, but also somebody that their opinion is of value to you. It might be quite tricky to ask a partner at this point in time, especially if you're in a sort of a fairly vulnerable position financially or stress wise, or, you know, there's something going on that means you can't have those conversations with a partner. But then you think about, you know, close friends, close colleagues from work. Are you lucky enough to have a mentor? So there should always be someone that you think, yeah, actually they know me well enough for me to have these open and honest conversations with.
That's a really good point. Thank you. Any questions before we move on to Gemma?
We don't have any messages in the chat at the moment.
No, that's fine. Let's take it forward, and let's listen to Gemma.
Thanks both. So I'm going to talk a little bit now around confidence, how we can build our confidence, and looking after our well-being during our job search. So having confidence during our job search is really important, and it's likely that we will lose our confidence through the process at some point. So it's really important for us to understand what is causing any self-doubt and how we can overcome this by reminding ourselves, when are we at our best? So there's a couple of questions on this slide for you to ask yourself. So when were you at your best? When did you accomplish something that you're really proud of? What's your best achievement, either personally or professionally? And try and remember that time and think about, what was it that made you your best? What was it that you did? What was the environment that was around you? Who was around you? People that supported you? And what did you do in that situation to make you at your best? And try to remember those feelings and take yourself back to that time in your life. And constantly remind yourself, what are your strengths? What are you really good at? When have you had some great feedback from people at work, your manager, colleagues? And keep hold of this to build your confidence. So as I said, there are some things we can do to help build our confidence, and practice really does make perfect when it comes to us being a little bit more confident. So just got a couple of things for you to think about. So firstly is our body language. And by using confident body language, we can project feelings of confidence onto other people, which can in turn improve our confidence levels. So thinking when you're out and about, meeting people, having interviews, have a really good posture, stand tall. Try to avoid negative body language, like folding your arms, having your hands in your pockets. And think about maintaining really good eye contact as well, because that can help with building our confidence. Always prepare as best as you can, and we'll talk about this in subsequent webinars that we do. But by preparing for the situation that we're going to be putting ourselves in and for different scenarios, that can really help to boost our confidence. So we know that we're ready to face that scenario or that situation or that interview, and we're going in there with the most amount of confidence possible. Try to adopt a growth mindset, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. And feeling confident very much starts with positive thinking. So try to reframe your mindset, talk to yourself positively in the morning, say your strengths out loud or write them down. And at the end of the day, reflect on something that you did well and visualize yourself achieving your goal. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in some of the future webinars. And it's important to remember that none of us are superheroes, and it's often tempting to focus on being perfect or judging ourselves from how others are. So learning to accept ourselves for who we are, again recognizing all of our strengths and positive attributes. We all have amazing strengths and positive things about ourselves, and really accepting our feelings can help with our confidence. And if you are having negative thoughts, challenge that inner critic that you've got. So if you're saying something unkind to yourself, stop, take a moment and ask yourself, would you say that to a close friend or a child? And invariably the answer is always no. So when you're having those thoughts, stop, take a moment and talk to yourself in a more positive way, like you would do to someone you love or a small child. And live by your values. So by making values driven choices and having a purpose, we're living by our own standards, which reduces that chance of self-doubt, which in turn increases our confidence. So you may have seen something similar to this before on a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is very much understanding that we are always improving. We can always improve our skills, our knowledge. We can always challenge ourselves to be a better version of ourselves. And this very much comes through experience and practice. And by adopting a growth mindset, this means that we're willing to take on new challenges, however hard that might be. We're willing to work hard and learn from mistakes. And again, it's very difficult when we make a mistake or we do something wrong, but actually in the long term, we grow and develop from those experiences. Again, not fearing failure. Again, easier said than done, but so much of what we learn comes from when we haven't done things so well, or when we have made mistakes, or when we have failed or something. And that's really helped to improve ourselves in the future. And seek feedback wherever you can. Feedback, positive or negative, is really, really useful. When it's positive, it can help boost our confidence and remember those times when we were at our best. But when it might be some negative feedback, again, use it in a positive way and use it to grow and develop and make yourself a better person. So by having this growth mindset, we're more likely to achieve our goals, and all the experiences that we counter will help us to really build our confidence and develop ourselves as individuals. And I think it's also really important not to forget your well-being during your job search. So you know, it can be a really emotional time, but taking time each day and making some small steps to look after yourself is really important to ensure that you can manage your mental and physical health and build your resilience over the course of the next few months. So we've now got, some of you may have seen it, but we've got lots more resources on the portal now around your well-being, how to look after your well-being, positive mindset, managing yourself through change. So do have a look at those. But, you know, just some quick tips. Try to keep as active as possible. Being active supports our physical and mental health, and where we can, spend time outside, which is really good for our well-being, particularly when the weather's nice. Eat well and stay hydrated. You know, both these things are really important. They give us more energy, they build our immune system, and they really help us feel at our best. Likewise, sleep is essential for our well-being. It helps us be more productive, helps with our concentration levels, as well as preparing ourselves for the day ahead. And we all know that job searching can be all-encompassing and can end up taking up a lot of our spare time. So ensure you do take some time for you, make time for things that you enjoy and that are going to allow you to relax and recharge your batteries. So again, you can be at your very best. And I think we're all guilty of this, but being connected 24/7 really can be overwhelming and isn't great for our mind or body. And we really do need to recover when we've been sort of at a screen all day. So take time at the end of the day just to reconnect with yourself and kind of unplug from phones, iPads, computers, and again, just take that time for yourself. So I'll now pass back to Debs, who got some final thoughts for us before we finish.
Okay, some takeaway learnings now that we're towards the end of the webinar, and some reflections. The alignment model is a really powerful tool. You'll need some time to reflect and need some time to pull together and put down in your own words your reflections. And I say to my people, it really is important to write it down. But, you know, get yourself a little book, get yourself something that you're going to keep close to you, where you can put down these reflections and start recording your thoughts, the processes, etc. So it really is important to put them down in words. Everybody's wants and needs are personal to them. So there's no right or wrong answer to the questions posed in the model. It's all about what is personal to you. It's a great starting point, and as we've said, can be used at various stages when you're going to jobs market or exploring other endeavours if you decide that the jobs market isn't for you at the current time. Be honest, seek some feedback from people around you that you can trust. You could ask them to describe when they saw you and when you were really great and what you were really great at, and get some reflection back from them. Factor in some time to look after yourself, as Gemma says. We do need some time to reflect on when we were great and build our confidence and our resilience, and remember how you were feeling at that time. Don't forget your well-being and be good to yourself. Next slide, Jen. Homework and next steps. So we didn't say this was going to be easy, and there is now an element of work that you need to do. So take some time to complete the alignment model. Complete the My Wants, which is quadrant 1, and My Offer, quadrant 2. Ask yourself and others, if you want, when you were at your best and what was the environment and who was around you. Secondly, I'd like you to think about researching some possible sectors and roles that you're interested in. So if you want to just pick a couple of sectors or one sector or one role and start to work through the role and look at the sector's wants and needs from that role. How do you align to it? So what I'm trying to get you to do is start practicing how you review a sector, how you review a role, and starting to map that onto the alignment model so that you can start building up a picture. So just use that as an opportunity. Take just one example and use it as an opportunity to start getting a feel of how you're going to use the alignment model going forward, and practice using it. If you've got any questions or you'd like us to review anything that you've worked on, just get in touch via the email support@nextstepsconsulting.co.uk. Next slide, Jem. So you can see a quote from Charlie McKeskey, "The boy, the mole, the fox and the horse." Don't know whether it's familiar to you, but these are particular beautiful quotes. And let's just take some time to look at those powerful words and that beautiful picture. Think about, those words. It does get better. And the picture, after those dark clouds, there is always a rainbow and sunshine. And we know that the storms will come again, but we'll be better prepared for the next storm that comes along. So we know that it will follow, that sunshine and rainbows will follow. But we know that kind of the storm is likely to come along, but we'll be prepared for that. Next slide, Jem. So finally, thank you for taking the time. We'll stay online for the next 30 minutes. If anyone would like to talk to us about anything that they've seen on this webinar or anything that they want to talk about in relation to job search, and we can support or give you some feedback. Alternatively, you've got access to the resources and the online portal. So just feel free, if you want to stay online, we'll stay online too. Thank you very much.